There have been a lot of bad movies made in the last half-century, and many of those have been nominated for and won the Golden Raspberry Award, or Razzie, for Worst Picture. The dubious honor has been bestowed on such stinkers as Geely and Battlefield Earth, for example. It's also gone to some movies that might not deserve the moniker of worst, even if they aren't the best. Either way, here is our list of just some of the movies that have won the unceremonious trophy for Worst Picture at the Razzies. Decades after Geely was released, little is remembered about the actual movie. Sure, people remember that it was a huge box office bomb, and we certainly remember the gossip surrounding the film's two stars, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. It's been a wild ride over the last couple of decades for Lopez and Affleck. Geely won the Golden Raspberry in 2004. Where to start with Showgirls? There is a lot to unpack about this Paul Verhoeven-directed film starring Elizabeth Berkley. It was eviscerated by critics and audiences alike when it was released in 1995. In the years since, many have re-evaluated the movie, and it's become a minor cult flick. In the moment, however, it was considered one of the worst movies ever made. It was nominated for a record 13 Razzies and, winning a then record 7, including Worst Picture and Worst Director for Verhoeven. To his credit, Verhoeven accepted his award in person, one of the few to do so. Can't Stop the Music is a wild ride. It's sort of, kinda, loosely based on the formation and career of the TH Village People, but it's so completely all over the place, it's easy to see why it was the inspiration for the organizers of the Razzies to invent the awards. As such, it was the first movie to win the Golden Raspberry in 1981. 2002's Swept Away, directed by Guy Ritchie and starring his then-wife Madonna, is, in theory, a romantic comedy. The problem is that both the humor and the romance don't have any heart at all. It's a stilted movie, and in the end, seems pretty much just like an excuse for Ritchie and Madonna to work together and little more. It won the Razzie for Worst Picture in 2003. The critical reviews of Cats when it was released in 2019 were wild. It almost became a sport for critics to outsnark each other with their reviews of the universally panned film. It was hardly a surprise when it won the Worst Movie Award in 2020. One of the few people to accept their award in person was Tom Green for Worst Director and Worst Actor for Freddy Got Fingered at the 2001 awards. It's perfectly subversive for Green to attend, and really, is the best part of the movie that won 8 Razzies in total, including Worst Picture. Frankly, it's amazing that a movie with this bad title even got made. In the late 1980s, Andrew Dice Clay became the idol of teenage boys all over America. His raunchy stand-up act was wildly popular, and that all led to his first starring role in a movie, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Of course, the movie, while loved by those teenage fans, was despised by critics, leading to its win in 1991. With all due respect to Transformers fans, none of the movies are all that good. Some are worse than others, and even strident fans have Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen ranked at the bottom of the series. It won the Golden Raspberry for Worst Picture in 2009. There was a lot of hype leading to the release of Blonde starring Ana de Armas in a biopic of Marilyn Monroe. When it did come out, critics and audiences didn't quite know what to make of the bizarre approach to the subject matter, and while de Armas was praised, the movie was panned. It took home the Razzie at the 2022 ceremony. The producers of the 2017 Golden Raspberry winner for Worst Picture, The Emoji Movie, got the last laugh as the movie made over $200 million at the box office and crushed it on streaming. It's wild that the movie ever got made, and even wilder that made so much money. With a Rotten Tomatoes rating somewhere in the single digits, Catwoman is considered one of the worst, if not the worst, superhero movies ever. Halle Berry took a lot of flack for her performance as the movie's protagonist, but she took it in stride, appearing at the Razzies to accept her award for Worst Actress, bringing her Oscar for Monsters Ball along with her. Miles Teller, who played Reed Richards in 2015's Fantastic Four, has acknowledged that it was no fun to be part of a box office bomb, but that's what this movie was. It was also panned by critics and audiences alike, including by winning the Razzie for Worst Picture. The Tom Cruise movie Cocktail was a huge hit in the 80s that has not stood the test of time. The movie and its soundtrack were huge hits, but critics hated it then, and they seem to hate it even more today. To be fair, Shining Through is not the worst movie on this list. In a lot of ways, it made the best movie on the list. It's frankly unfair that it won the Worst Movie Award when it was released the same year as Christopher Columbus: The Discovery, which was nominated and should have been the winner. When The Twilight Saga: Breaking Dawn, Part 2 won the Razzie in 2012, it felt like the awards were celebrating the entire series. It was the third Twilight movie to be nominated in successive years, but the first to take home Worst Picture. Before Mommy Dearest became something of a cult hit on cable TV in the 1980s, it was mostly panned by critics upon its release in 1981, with Faye Dunaway taking the most heat for her portrayal of Hollywood legend Joan Crawford. The movie won was the second winner of the Golden Raspberry in 1981. Like a few other movies on this list, Howard the Duck was a hit with a certain demographic of mostly teenage boys when it was released in 1986. The special effects, especially of the duck, were pretty terrible, and you have to feel bad for Leah Thompson, who had to act her way through a love scene with the puppet. Howard the Duck tied with Princes Under the Cherry Moon for the Razzie. In concept, Wild Wild West might have been a good idea, but on the screen the movie, starring Will Smith and Kevin Kline, doesn't work on any level. It's a movie that truly deserves its spot on this list. Sometimes you have to ask why this was even a thing. Diana, a Broadway musical based on the life of Princess Diana, is, on paper and in practice, a terrible idea. It may not deserve to be on this list, as the movie is actually the original Broadway show that was filmed for Netflix. Either way, it's a bad idea. There does seem to be a theme in the earliest years of the Razzies: they really didn't like movies that appealed to teenagers. Take, for example, Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Wildly popular with some, enough to continue the franchise for decades, but despised by critics. It won in 1985. Based on the wildly popular erotic novels, 50 Shades of Grey was sure to be a box office hit when it was released in 2015. It made a ton of money, but critics panned it. It won the Worst Movie Razzie, but had to share the award with Fantastic Four. Honestly, they both pretty much deserve it. Adam Sandler's Jack and Jill is a great example of an actor playing multiple roles in the same movie, but it's a pretty terrible example of comedy and filmmaking. Like a lot of the Sandman's movies, it crushed at the box office, but it bombed in every other way, including when it won the Razzie in 2011. John Travolta's passion project Battlefield Earth is often mentioned among the worst movies ever made. It's hard to argue against that notion, as it doesn't even work in a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of way. It's not even unintentionally funny, it's just bad. It took home 7 Razzies in 2000, including Worst Picture. Though it made a ton of money and has an all-star cast of Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson, and Robert Redford, Indecent Proposal was a critical disaster and as such, took home the Razzie in 1993. Some would argue that one of the nominees, Body of Evidence, starring Madonna, should have been the winner, however. Madonna did manage to win Worst Actress though. The winner for Worst Picture in 1991 is another one of those movies that you have to question why anyone would greenlight the idea. Hudson Hawk is, frankly, a bizarre movie that is theoretically supposed to be a slapstick, surrealist comedy, but it just doesn't work on any level. In total, Kevin Costner's The Postman won all 5 Golden Raspberry Awards for which it was nominated, including Worst Actor and Worst Director for Costner, and Worst Picture. While Waterworld was a similarly panned post-apocalyptic movie starring Costner, at least that movie has been re-evaluated over the years. The Postman still stinks. The Bill Cosby vehicle Leonard Part 6 was terrible when it was released, and time has not been kind to it, either. The Golden Raspberry Committee got this 100% correct, and the movie should remain in the dustbin of history.